He once wore a suit and defended the law. A solicitor, educated, articulate, and respected. But in 2021, Martin Reddy, a 39-year-old lawyer from Coatbridge, Scotland, sat behind his laptop alone in the dark and typed words that would destroy his life. On his screen, he wasn't a lawyer anymore. He was a man looking to hire a killer. For months, Reddy had been descending into a fog of obsession, paranoia, and delusion, and the internet became his weapon. He would go where few dare to go. The hidden corners of the web beyond Google, beyond trace, the dark web. There, in a marketplace that promised anonymity and death for hire, Martin Reddy placed an order. He wanted someone dead, and not just anyone. His target was Darren Hardy, a 37-year-old former prosecutor and casual acquaintance from his local pub. A man who had crossed his path a few times, but never imagined he would one day become the object of a murder plot. Reddy wasn't an amateur when it came to systems or secrecy. He knew about privacy laws, digital footprints, and encryption, the kind of man who could read the fine print before breaking it. Investigators would later say his planning was methodical. He started by converting over 5,000 pounds into Bitcoin. Money he moved through small, calculated transactions to avoid attention. Then he logged onto a dark website known as an online killer's market. It looked like something out of a nightmare. Pages filled with fake reviews, ratings, and service menus. Standard hit, 10,000 pounds. Accident-style hit, 15,000 pounds. Clean disappearance, price negotiable. It read like a twisted version of Amazon, but the products were human lives. Reddy sent the payment, 5,071 pounds in Bitcoin, along with photos of Hardy, his address, and notes on his daily habits. He wrote instructions like he was ordering a takeaway. The target can be found at this location around 8 p.m. most nights. Then he waited. He didn't know it yet, but the site he trusted wasn't run by a professional killer. It was likely a scam, or worse, a monitored honeypot watched by investigators and journalists who track dark web crime. Either way, his anonymity was about to vanish. What drove a solicitor, a man who once fought for justice, to become a would-be killer? That's the question Scotland's High Court would spend months trying to answer. When police arrested Martin Reddy in 2022, they discovered a bizarre double life. On the surface, he was a quiet, solitary man. Behind closed doors, his mind was unraveling. He told psychiatrists that he believed he was living through an apocalyptic mission, that he was evil Jesus. He spoke of demons, conspiracies, and a cosmic battle between light and darkness. In his mind, the plot to kill Hardy wasn't murder, it was revelation. He claimed he thought killing this one man would expose organized crime tied to Hardy's family pub. A fantasy built from threads of paranoia and resentment. But prosecutors saw something else: clear intent, planning, and payment. This wasn't a delusional impulse, it was a calculated crime. In court, Reddy's defense painted him as mentally unwell. He had a history of psychiatric treatment and hallucinations. He had once been admitted for evaluation after claiming he'd been abducted and threatened by gang members, but prosecutors pointed to the evidence: Bitcoin transfers, encrypted chats, and screenshots of the dark web pages. They showed the jury how he had gone through every stage of a contract killing: finding the site, creating an alias, sending payment, and confirming the order. He even tracked whether the hit had been assigned, like a customer checking the status of an online delivery. Then came the damning detail: The messages he sent after the hit failed to materialize. In one, he complained that the job hadn't been done. He demanded updates. He even threatened to report the hitman to the admins, as if he were a dissatisfied customer of death. It was all there: intent, persistence, and cold focus. When his trial began in Glasgow High Court, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, former colleagues, even law students who once admired him came to watch. How does a man who once swore an oath to protect justice become the villain in his own story? The prosecution argued that his legal training made the crime even more disturbing. He knew exactly how evidence worked. He understood motive and mens rea, the intent to kill, yet he pursued it anyway. The defense leaned on his mental illness. Psychiatrists testified that he had suffered psychotic delusions for years, believing he was part of a divine conspiracy. At times, he believed voices told him to act, but the jury saw a man who, despite his delusions, could still plan, budget, and hide his trail. He wasn't out of control. He was in control. Terrifyingly so. Police testified about the digital hunt that caught him. They traced his Bitcoin payments across blockchain transactions, converting the anonymous web of crypto into hard evidence. Then they tracked the IP addresses used for his dark web logins through VPNs, routers, and Tor nodes, slowly closing the digital net. It wasn't one big mistake that exposed him. It was 100 small ones. A login that came from his home Wi-Fi, a message sent at the same time he texted a friend, and a Bitcoin wallet that connected back to a real-world bank account. In the end, he wasn't caught by force. He was caught by data. The very technology that promised to keep him invisible became his downfall. By late 2024, Martin Reddy had been found guilty of conspiracy to murder, importing ammunition, and possession of a firearm. But before sentencing, the judge ordered further psychiatric evaluations. Doctors said Reddy's delusions were real, though not enough to excuse the crime entirely. He was sent to the Rowan Bank Clinic, a secure psychiatric hospital in Glasgow, while the court debated how to balance punishment and treatment. Outside the courtroom, the victim, Darren Hardy, struggled to comprehend what had happened. He wasn't a rival or an enemy, just a man who had shared drinks at a pub with someone who later decided he should die. Hardy told reporters he was haunted by the idea that someone he barely knew had watched him, tracked him, and paid for his death online. He said, "It's something you read about, not something you expect to be the headline with your name on it." Experts later said Reddy's case represented the modern face of contract killing. Not mobsters, not hitmen in alleys, but people with Wi-Fi and cryptocurrency acting out private fantasies of vengeance or fear. It's called murder as a service, a growing trend where dark web users post requests, pay in Bitcoin, and wait for a stranger to do their dirty work. The irony? Almost every one of these so-called hitman sites is fake. They're scams run by opportunists who prey on desperate, disturbed people. They take the money, but no one dies. In Reddy's case, that might have saved a life. When the verdict was read, Reddy showed little emotion. He didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't protest. He simply looked down, calm, detached, as the judge described him as a deeply dangerous man whose delusions made him capable of unimaginable harm. The sentence, 30 years behind bars with a review after 20. Half a lifetime for a crime that never reached its target, but nearly did. In the quiet moments after the trial, reporters described seeing Reddy being led away, still muttering under his breath about the mission and divine justice. Even in chains, he seemed trapped inside his own mythology. A man who once stood for law and order, now consumed by chaos. The story of Martin Reddy isn't just about crime, it's about control, delusion, and the digital tools that turn imagination into threat. He wasn't part of a gang. He wasn't a hitman himself. He was an ordinary man who believed he could buy death online. And that belief cost him everything. If this case teaches anything, it's this. The dark web promises anonymity, but nothing is truly hidden. Every click, every coin, every message leaves a trace. And sometimes those traces lead straight to a courtroom. Martin Reddy thought he could outsmart the system, that his law degree and his faith in technology would protect him. But justice in the end found him exactly where he hid, behind his own screen.